Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So I decided to make this video in this format since it's been a little bit since I've made one of these, and I do these from time to time. But I started to think about a couple of different things that I've been seeing on some videos on YouTube recently, and it's been kind of an interesting thing that I've been kind of pondering through a little bit. And what it comes down to is basically what the video title is describing. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but I am going to spend a little bit of time just talking through one or two things related to it. So we're in an interesting spot. After the beginning of the year where there was a whole bunch of stories and different things going on in the channel, and I definitely covered a bunch of them, you know, praise to the content gods as always, but things have slowed down quite a bit. And, you know, not surprisingly, given the amount of run-up and things that have been going on the last, a couple of years actually, since basically COVID took over, the reality of it is that as things have gone on, we've reached a bit of a stagnation or a plateau period. Now, it would be too simplistic to suggest that it was simply a matter of the amount of run-up, although that is a major factor. The fact is we have had a gigantic run-up since 2019, so at a certain point you kind of have to acknowledge that there was going to be a stagnation and a slowdown and, of course, a decline in certain categories and areas because it's unsustainable going. You can't go up indefinitely. You can't keep throwing money in indefinitely and expect that to be a viable alternative. But even then, we do still have occasionally some record sales still, and we've got some of that going on. And I talk about the Jason Dominguez sale, again, gross speculation, and a variety of other different categories. But one consequence of a lot of this stuff, as things have stagnated, as things have slowed down, is that you will notice that a lot of your content creators that were out here maybe about 6 months to a year ago have started to slow down or go away. And one of the fun things that's fun for me to watch as an observer, because again, praise be to the content gods, but even if it's not Fanatics doing something or one of the grading companies doing something or eBay doing something or, drama in the hobby, there's always something. And one of the fun things that's enjoyable for me is sitting back and looking at trends or looking at the way things are going as far as the content space is concerned. Because I've been out here doing this thing as far as creating sports card content since the end of 2018. So the fall of 2018, I believe it was September 2018 was the first sports card related video that I made on this channel. Those of you who go back in the video history and check it out, I was doing Blu-ray videos and other movie stuff earlier, basically just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with this whole YouTube thing. I decided to lean in on the sports card thing mainly because I know it and I've been around it a while and I can definitely speak to a variety of different things on it. So from that perspective, it's easy for me to come up with new topics and ideas and make adjustments and, do what I'm doing. And as a collector, I'm still doing my thing. But it would be foolish of me to not notice that a variety of other folks that were making videos for quite some time, after I had already started, suddenly have slowed down or have stopped making videos entirely. And of course, part of the enjoyment is seeing the reaction to that as well. And I got a taste of it, through different times as far as I'm doing the live streams. And, I'll give you a simple example, Sasha T. And for a little while there, Sasha T wasn't making any videos. He's recently gone back to making some vlogs, but for a little while there, he wasn't making any videos. And of course, there were the folks that were sitting there with the satisfaction saying, Sasha T's gone. And I'm sitting there. And the thing is, I'm following Sasha T on a lot of these social medias because I'm keeping my eyes open. And it's like, no, he's around still. He's still going to these card shows. He's still going to Burbank. He's still doing all these things. And then now he's back to making videos. But again, people get obsessive about this. And by the way, just to be clear, it's not the investor types that are obsessing about this. It's the quote-unquote collector types. They're the ones that are obsessing about it because what they're trying to do is they're trying to find this moment in time where all the flippers and all that go away, which is fine, dandy, great. But just to be clear, I've also noticed that while the flippers and some of those folks, the investor types and everything, as the market has slowed down and stagnated, they've started to kind of go away and drift off. You know who else has kind of gone away and drifted off? I don't see nearly as much collector-based content. Do I see no collector-based content? That's not true. I definitely do. But I follow a ton of channels, and a variety of them are collector-based content. Folks are kind of busy. They got other things going on in their life. And also, we cannot ignore the external factors going on around us. Even as I'm speaking to you right at this moment, a lot of these videos are an interesting little time capsule into a moment in time. I'm speaking to you in the latter portion of February 2022, and as we're speaking right now, the stock market's down over the course of this year. A lot of things are going on. There's a little bit of unrest in the world. Ukraine and Russia and a lot of these things going on. And of course, we still got the COVID thing going on in some places, less so in others. But the point is, there's a variety of different things that are all coming together to make things a little bit unstable. And when things are unstable and things are insecure, not everybody's going to run out to go and spend their money on sports cards. That said, even on this channel, if you're paying attention, I've had a lot less as far as pickups in terms of pickup videos going the last couple of weeks. Now, in fairness, a lot of that is being funneled over to the Ship My Cards. So I've got a ComC order that I've made the last couple of weeks that is probably going to be coming in probably sometime in early March. I did get a couple of cards in the mail today, actually, including one that I was tracking, and I was able to pick that up today. And then in addition, I also have a couple of different items that are sitting in Ship My Cards right now that I'm waiting on one more item, and then I'm going to trigger a shipment over to get it to me. So probably in the next week or two, I'll get a shipment of that. So it'll be a couple of bigger mail days as opposed to the consistent, week-on-week mail days that I've been going. But I've been buying aggressively, probably for the last year and a half, so to speak. Well, one of the things that I've done, in the same way that a lot of folks have done, is that I've kind of sat back and slowed down a little bit. Not because I don't see some opportunities, but I also don't need, and this is kind of important, the psychological aspect of this whole thing. So the theme of this video really is that there is a lot more below the surface than a lot of people do. I've listened to a lot of attempted analysis at this, and they've drawn these conclusions, and I enjoy the mental gymnastics that people do when they try to figure out the reason why suddenly there's less sports car content. Well, to be clear, some of it is actually really simple. Some of it is what you think. Some of it is that, well, the market has slowed down and stagnated. Therefore, a lot of these investor channels have started to kind of fade off and go away. Why? Because they were really drawn in from the money in the first place. So that's kind of easy. That's not that complicated to figure out. But even some of the collector channels have slowed down. And part of that is because people are busy. People have other things going on. Also, when there's a little bit of uncertainty, people are less inclined to spend their disposable income on something like sports cards, even though, it may present an interesting buying opportunity. I talked about the 2022 Topps Series 1 and the likely high print run. And by likely, I mean it's a super high print run. By today's standards, not by junk wax standards. That's the point that I was trying to make in that other video, is that by junk wax standards, it's laughably low. But by our current modern day standards, it's incredibly high. So these are two different things. All that comes in together to say that people are making decisions. And they're making decisions every single day. So when they're sitting back and thinking about this, and this is even as a longtime collector, I'm still buying cards all the time, but I'm being a lot more selective in specific in what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to do. I have my projects and things that I'm working on, but I'm also taking my time because I'm in no hurry. I have goals that I make at the end of every single year, and I do the goals video and the whole thing on this channel. But that doesn't mean that if for whatever reason, the climate changes, if I'm sitting there and I sense an opportunity and I see that the stock market is shifted in a certain way, well, then I'm probably going to put some of my money in there. If I sense an opportunity over here to put some money aside for some things that I'm going to need, I'm going to put that money over there. And even in a small, little tiny level, I'll give you a really simple, basic example. Again, life is all part of this. Our budgets are all part of this. And it's a really simple thing. In a short version, if somebody takes it in a vacuum and they just looked at my channel and they said, oh, well, he was buying stuff all the time and now he's slowing down. It must be because the market is slowed down. It's like, no, not really. Part of it is that I'm being very picky about what I'm picking up because I'm also paying attention to that market and I'm trying to pick my spots a little bit more strategically. However, there's a much simpler explanation. That's kind of my overarching point on this video. The reason why I'm making it this way is, let me give you a simpler explanation. The way that things are structured in my municipality, in the city that I'm in, is that we do our property taxes 6 months out of the year. So they cycle them in 3-month periods. So they'll do 3 months on, and then they'll take a little bit of time off, and then they'll do 3 months again. So out of the 12 months, 6 of the months will be our entire year's worth of property taxes spaced out over 6 periods. Well, I've had a couple of months off since the end of last year, and then now heading into March, I made my first payment this past week during my paycheck because the first payment would have been due the beginning of March. So I made my payment already. Well, that was $357. I forget the exact amount. The point is, that's money that immediately came out of my budget. So as I'm getting paid and I'm getting my biweekly payment for work, basically my budget had previously not had that as part of it. But in this case, I have $357 that I have to spend on this specific thing because I have to pay my property taxes. And the property tax is calculated every year, and it slowly indexes up based on the perceived value of my property, and so on and so forth. Homeowner problems, hashtag homeowner problems. But the reality is that's a fact of life. So guess what? It means this month I have to pay 356, 357, whatever it is. Next month I have to pay 356, 357, and then 1 month after that, 356, 357. So that money comes out of the budget. And that is pertaining to anything. Groceries, it pertains to anything else. Forget about all the inflation and all that. We can talk about all that in a separate conversation. But the point is that I have a element added to my budget that I have to pay. It's part of it. Property taxes are a thing. But I have to pay it. Well, therefore, that's $357 less dollars that I could potentially spend on cards or anything else, as a matter of fact. So I have to adjust my budget accordingly. Unfortunately, I have a budget. A lot of people do. So stuff happens. So it's one of those things where at a high level, if you just take it, it's like, oh man, you must be, down on cards. Like, no, I just have 357 less dollars to spend on anything disposable. So if I had disposable income, it has been reduced by that amount. There is a common sense reason for a lot of these things. And sometimes it's a bigger reason. It can be a small reason like that, or it can be a bigger economic reason. Another reason that I would think would be legitimate if somebody wanted to hold back a little bit right now is that if they're looking at an opportunity, and they're seeing some instability in the market because of world events and things that are going on right now in the world, well then wouldn't they want to be able to sit back and potentially be able to pick up, some stock and some securities that may be, valued a little bit lower than probably they should be, given the strength of the company or whatever the case may be. We also have to be thinking short-term and long-term, right? Sports cards are meant to be fun. And this is the tack that I've always taken on this channel. And, your mileage may vary, but all I'm saying to you is that my opinion is that sports cards have always been an enjoyable pastime for me. Have I been very aggressive in my buying over the years? Absolutely. The last couple of years especially, because a lot of opportunities have presented themselves, and I have taken that opportunity. But that isn't to say that I have lost sight of the fact that there is more to it. It is only one aspect of my overall life. This condo that I live in, I have to pay it off, and it is being paid off every single couple of weeks. At the same time that I make my paycheck, I also make my condo payment. They've all been tied together. But the reality of it is that as time has gone on, I've slowly built up my equity in it, and that is one aspect of my overall financial life. A lot of people do things differently as far as their personal situation. Your mileage may vary and what you're doing may vary. And I'm never going to give anybody advice on what to do with their money. But sports cards are a small portion of an overall, life. But it's one of those things that are very enjoyable to me. So I always allocate a certain amount of my budget to that. But if something affects that budget, or if other opportunities may come up, I have to consider those. And that's part and parcel of the game, the ebb and flow. And it will always be an ebb and flow in the hobby. And maybe this is the overarching theme that we have to consider here. Things are more complicated than they seem. People make decisions for various reasons. The people that came into the hobby because of the big money, yes, they're going to go away when the gravy train seems to slow down and when things become a lot more difficult. We knew that was going to happen. But for the people who are acting all self-satisfied and everything, you really didn't accomplish anything. Because in reality, you are then going to have to play in the new playground that's going to be here going forward. I'm still going to be here one way or the other. I'm just simply going to adjust what I do as far as going into it. What have I done to adjust? Well, I already told you. My budget has been adjusted a little bit. But that means that some of the cards that I had sitting around, that I've been sitting on for a little while, if the value is appropriate based on what I paid for it previously, I have no qualms about putting it up for sale and selling it. And I've been selling some cards here and there that have actually done very well for me, relatively. I've actually made a profit on these cards. So slowly over time, I'm building up a little bit of a coffer that I'm putting to the side. And what I do with that money going forward is going to depend on what the situation is. I'm sitting back in my chair and watching what's happening out there in the world. Sports cards may be a piece of it, but mainly from an enjoyment perspective. I'm not worried about the ROI on the cards that I'm buying for the most part. Does that mean that I'm going to overpay on everything? No. That means I'm still going to be a little bit picky from time to time in terms of what I do and when I do it. But it does mean that I'm going to also be cognizant that there is a longer game being played here. Sports cards are an enjoyable pastime. They're an element that should hopefully give you stress relief, enjoyment, whatever that is. That should be the biggest value that they're giving to you. And if they're doing that, then they're providing a benefit. But if they're not doing that, if they're creating that, and I touched on that in the last video that I made, if they're creating stress for you, if you really are just sitting around waiting for things to fail because you want to gain satisfaction from that, well then maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you need to get out of it. But for me, the enjoyment has always been there, and the enjoyment continues to be there. And it's one of those things, like I said, even though I've slowed down in certain ways and some of the stuff I'm doing, I'm still picking up stuff here and there. And what's going to happen is, like I said, You may not see a mail day every single week, but you're going to see a couple of pretty awesome ones when the time comes and when the time is right. And I'm going to pick my spots here and there. But that's basically what's going to be the game plan going forward. I've shifted and adjusted according to the situation on the ground. And that's basically what I'm doing. And if I was going to advocate something to you, I would advocate the same. It doesn't mean it's a buying time. It doesn't mean it's a selling time. It doesn't mean it doesn't have to be either for you. And what you're going to do going forward, I'm not going to advise you. All I'm going to say is look around you, figure out the situation on the ground, and decide what works best for you. I've already figured out kind of what works best for me, and I will consistently and continue to tweak and adjust that plan as things change going forward. But I'll still be here, week on week. And that's basically how I've taken to enjoying my hobby side of it. And if I can't be buying stuff all the time, that's fine too, because I'm happy to talk about it and I'm happy to enjoy myself. We're still going to do our live streams on Fridays. That's how I've been doing my things. And then I'm still going to make my videos talking about topics like this. Today was a bit more of an open-ended kind of discussion. If you've got any thoughts or anything, please feel free to throw them in the comments. I'd be happy to engage with you on that. Otherwise, there'll be more videos coming up on the channel. The Friday live stream, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, will still be happening as normal. But if you take away nothing else, please understand what I'm saying to you. All I'm saying is that we've got different seasons in our collecting. And I've touched on a similar theme before, I believe, in one of my other videos. There are different seasons to collecting. And all that means, really, is there are going to be times that are going to be like, really high octane. We're going to go high gear. We're going to be looking for stuff. We're going to be finding stuff. And there are going to be some times that are going to be, a little bit on the low end. We got to kind of take our time, be a little bit more deliberate, be a little bit more particular about what we're going to do. And that's only because, hey, I don't have millions and millions of dollars, and most of you don't either. So I have to pick and choose my spots. And if things need to slow down a little bit, I've got other expenses that come up. I got to pay my property taxes. I got to be doing other things. That's fine. That's okay. But that just means that I need to slow down. If I need to sell, or if I need to or want to sell a couple of other things in order to provide myself with a little bit of a flexibility, because that money that I do from those sales can go in part to the collection and also in part to paying for other things. So I've got other plans and things that I've got in mind. So it's one of those things where there's a little bit of a balance. That money isn't going to go to one place. It can actually go to multiple places. And that's kind of the decision-making process that all of us have to make. And as long as we're able to consistently do that, reevaluate our position, and be willing to be adaptable to change, then we're still going to be here for the long haul. And that's always been the game plan. That's the bottom line, is hopefully you continue to adjust and adapt to the situation on the ground so that you can still be here for the long haul. That's my plan. I plan to be here going forward in the future. And hopefully, if you've done your own planning on your side of things, you'll still be around for that time too. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Best of luck in whatever your collecting endeavors going forward in the future, or your life endeavors, whatever they are going forward in the future. That's it for me for now. We'll catch you in the next one.